Hey everybody, Steve here. Hope everybody is having a good day. Appreciate everybody joining us today. I got some great education for you today. I'm going to be walking you through all the things I do when I'm preparing to go out for an appointment, when I talk to a seller for the first time on the phone, gathering information, just everything that we do to try and get a deal under contract, try to build rapport with our sellers, estimate our repairs. There's just all these hosts of things that we go through. And, like I had mentioned in my video, I have people ask me all the time, sure, I sure would love to, ride with you for a day. And like I mentioned, that's really difficult to do. In the reality of it is, and so what better way can I do this is just to put something together for you guys and just walk you through exactly what I'm doing. And so write down your questions, let me know as at the end if I can help guide you any more, if you've got a particular situation that you're dealing with a seller, somebody you're talking to and negotiating, or you got a phone call or whatever it may be. It really doesn't matter. We're here to just try and walk through the process and learn what we're doing here. So letting everybody get logged in here. We got a pretty good audience signed up today, so giving everybody just a minute to get signed in before I get going. But it's going to be it'll be a good class. Like I said, these are just the things that I do, things that I think about. And, oftentimes we get very tense about what we're trying to do. We get nervous about it. And hopefully I will also be able to give you some things that you can do to give you a comfort level and make it easier for you, especially if you're newer at doing this, or you haven't maybe even talked to a seller yet, a potential seller. That's kind of some of the things we're going to go through today. So we've got a few minutes after, so I'm going to get going with this, and then anybody that isn't on, they'll just have to see where we're at the time. So what is our first goal with a seller? So if someone calls in, whether it's the first phone call or you're calling them back or whatever the case is, one thing we just got to kind of keep in mind is we've got to make a good impression. Especially on the phone, especially that first interaction we have with somebody, they don't know us, we don't know them at that point. And so we've got about 1 second to make a good impression. So what do we have to do to make a good impression? We have to be friendly, nice, and really that's about all we got to do. Just, when you answer the phone, how are you going to think about how you're going to answer the phone? So if someone calls in and I answer the phone, I just simply say, "Hi, this is Steve. How can I help you?" I'm not saying this is any company names or anything like that. I'm trying to take it to a personal level. And really, when we're talking to sellers for single families, we definitely want to try and get to that personal level right off the bat. And I just have found by just saying, hey, this is Steve. How can I help you? You're kind of steering it that direction right out of the gate. And, one of the things that I talk to a lot of people about, a lot of people have trouble with this in the beginning, is, talking with confidence. And this is something that's hard for a lot of people. I know I struggled with this a lot in the beginning, talking with confidence, because, when someone calls us, we don't know what they're going to ask us. We don't have any idea what the situation is. So trying to figure out how we're going to talk with confidence and, when we think about it, it can be difficult. But being friendly and just talking, we don't have to know anything at this point. We just have to carry ourselves in a good, professional, confident manner. And if that means going into the bathroom and closing the door and talking to yourself in the mirror, these are things that I've done over the years to help me, especially in the beginning, to get to that point where I could do that. And we always have to remember, they're calling us. So no matter what the marketing is that they received from us, they're calling us. So if it is someone that is a serious seller and they do have some sort of a situation, we have to assure them right out of the gate, I'm here to help you. So if somebody calls in, hey, this is Steve, how can I help you? And they'll give me whatever their story is. Well, I'm more than happy to look at your property. I think, we're here to help you in any way that we can, just throwing those little things out there to them. And this was before you're gathering even any information. These are the little things that give them confidence and help you with your confidence in talking with that seller. So just think about that, and like I say, practice it. That's what I did. That's why I'm able to do some of the things I do today, is because I'm really good at going and practicing before I have to do it. and that will give you confidence as well. The more we practice, the better we are in our delivery with whatever we're doing and where we're going. So what information do we really need when we're talking to somebody? Well, we want to make sure that we get the best contact information for them. And sometimes if we get excited about something and we're talking to them, something sounds really good, sometimes we forget the simple things. And I've been guilty of that, especially in the beginning. I'd get off the phone from somebody, I'm like, oh, damn, I didn't get their phone number. Or, oh, I got to call them back because I didn't ask for the address of the property. Just little things like that. It happens, especially when we're more in the beginning of doing this. And I know that these are some of the basic things, but I think these are some of the basic things that we need to talk about and get ourselves comfortable with. Because once you start doing it, it becomes second nature and becomes very easy to do. And that's where you want to get to. And no matter what level you are, the more confident we are in what we're doing, the better we're going to do, no matter what level we're at in any type of business at all. So one of the things that I always want to ask my sellers is, why are they considering selling their home? Now, by asking this way, I'm being very friendly in my conversation. Most of the big scripts that we see from all the gurus and everything, first off, they're a page and a half, 2 pages long. They're ridiculous. They have all kinds of questions that they want you to ask the seller that, to be quite honest, we really don't need to have all that information. We can find that information out in a lot of different ways. And we don't really need that information at this point. At this point of the conversation, we have only a couple of very small goals. Our first goal is to build rapport with our sellers. And then the second is to get a little bit of information to determine if should I make an appointment or should I move on to the next person? So by asking, how are you considering selling your home? I'm also being very non-threatening in my question. Most of these questionnaires, these scripts are it's going to be, why are you trying to sell your home? They come at you very, very rough, and sellers don't like that. And we're trying to build that rapport. We're trying to make that tiny little good impression right out of the gate. So by being non-confrontational allows us to do that. And depending on what answer I get from that seller on why they're considering selling their home, it's going to depend on how I'm going to ask my question and the condition of the property. If they say that the property needs a lot of work, well, then we can ask those questions very easily and it's not a problem. If they say that they have other issues in their life and it's not the property, then I might ask a question or might answer their question to the fact of, since you have this problem, I assume that the house is really in probably pretty good shape. And you're going to get very voluntary answers from your sellers by asking that way and talking to them that way. When we're nice and friendly, people like to give us answers. When we're coming at them rough and gruff, they pull back and don't want to give us answers. So, think about how you are asking your questions. And you can see that I'm not going into tons of detail at this point. I'm looking and listening for different things, and you'll see that more as we go farther into the class today. So ask why they're considering selling their house. Don't ask them why they're selling their house. Don't say, what is your problem? Be very nice and gentle with it. Remember, they called you. They want you to help them. And we've already assured them that we're going to help them anyhow, right out of the gate. So what is some of the, what's our first goal with the seller? we need to get some information, like I said. So asking questions, we're going to go more into this now, asking questions to the sellers so they're willing to give us the answers. One of the biggest questions I see on all these big scripts and stuff, and I've got friends that will say, you do not get off the phone until you find out how much they owe on that house. We need to know what they owe on that house. And to be quite honest about it, if you ask 9 out of 10 sellers how much they owe on that house, the response you're going to get is, it's none of your damn business. And if somebody asked me that question, that would be my exact response to them. But how can we find out that information without directly asking them that? There's lots of ways we can do it in a very friendly way. And so what I will do is, if I get to where I need to find this information out, I'm going to ask them how long they've owned the house. And if I've got a seller that says, hey, I've owned the house for 30 years, my response is going to be, 30 years, man, that's great. I'll bet you were thrilled the day you got that house paid off. So I've flipped the question entirely. And the way that people react, if they have that house paid off, they're going to be very proud of that. And they're going to give you some sort of response like, yeah, man, that was a great day. Getting that house paid off was wonderful, man. You talk about, some weight off my shoulders. Or they might respond, well, we had it paid off, but, a couple of years ago, we did a little equity loan, we probably owe about 20,000 on it, 30,000 on it. You're going to get that type of response. You might get a response, well, we had it paid off, but we cashed out, refied that baby last year 100%. But by the way I ask that question is, it's amazing how people are going to answer you and give you the right answer. And you're going to know, okay, we've got equity in this property. No, we don't have any equity in this property. So thinking about how we're asking our questions is very, very important. And we, like I said, we don't need to get tons of information. I don't care how many bedrooms and bathrooms the house has, because I probably know, because I've pulled that up on if it's Harris County, I'm pulling that up on HCAT. I need to ask them what the square footage is, because I've got that information. All these questionnaires and all these scripts tell you that you have to ask all these questions. Well, I've thrown all those questions out years and years ago. And my goal is to find out if we've got motivation and find out if we've got equity in the property. Those are my only two criteria for going out and making an appointment. So non-threatening questions, you get results that way. So just think about how you're asking your questions and like I say, practice them. And you will be amazed at the positive responses you get back. Remember, we're looking for motivated sellers. If I get the guy that calls in and all they're doing is give me a number, well, I know that that's not a motivated seller. I know that I need to get off the phone with that person. I'm looking for the person that needs my help. So that's, and if they're calling you, they probably need your help. So some things to think about when you're doing that. So are you prepared for your appointments? This is something that I've gone out on many appointments with many people over the years. And I get out to a house and they've got nothing in their hands. They've got nothing. They're walking in blind. And I'm very big on preparing for my appointments. And it's very simple. My procedure is very simple, and it's what I've done forever. And basically I have our CRM sheet on the front page. Behind that, I'm going to have the CAD. So if it's Harris County, I'm going to have my HCAD information on the property. Behind that, I'm going to have my comps, and then I'm going to have a Google Maps picture of the house. Very simple. But I've got all kinds of information that I need. If I need that information, I've got it in my hand. And this is for me to look at. This isn't necessarily for me to share with my seller. This is my information. So if I need to write a contract right then and there, I've got the information off the CAD. I've got legal description, everything. I can write that contract right then and there while we're talking. So very important to just have a system of how you're prepared when you get out to a property. Another thing that we need to be doing is, how well did we listen to our sellers on the phone? How well did we listen to what they told us on the phone? Because they may have given us information that we might need to have something in addition to what I normally carry with me. based on the conversations, what have we learned about the seller? So things I'm listening for. What is their personality type? Is this a seller that's going to want me to give them a contract before I leave that day? Is this a seller that's more of a technical type of a person and they're going to need more information? They're not going to want a contract. They're not going to want that offer right off the bat. They're going to want they're going to need information that they can process. Are there people coming out after I'm coming out there to look at the property? If there's people coming out after me, I never leave a contract. I always make sure that that seller knows I'm going to get back to them later that day or the next day with my offer. I want those other people to come out there before I throw my number out there. So how do we, in talking to that seller, how well are we listening? Remember, the greatest salesmen in the world are the best listeners. Hands down, in any business, every single time. Be a very good listener. Be very observant of what your sellers are telling you when you're talking to them on the phone. It will take you way, way, way down the road. And also by doing that, you're showing how professional you are. You're also showing how much you did pay attention. And people notice this stuff. For some reason, we assume that just because someone calls us and they have a problem with their house, we assume they're not a smart person. And that's the worst thing we could assume. We're dealing with smart people here. And we need to treat them that way. And by doing little things like this, it just puts you on a different level than any of your competition that's coming out there. It's just coming out there and trying to throw a low number at them. So this is always, this is how I roll 100%. And I can't tell you how many deals I have gotten. Sellers have called me back, even though my offer might have been a little lower than the next guy, but I was willing to take care of them. I was listening to what they were saying. I was following their lead in the conversation, always making my seller feel like they're in control and totally being in control myself. So this is, just some things to throw out there for you guys. If you don't have an estimate repair sheet, this is something that you need to get. This is an estimate repair sheet I have used for years. And now I don't need to fill it out anymore because I can walk into a house and pretty much know what my repairs are going to be, but I've been doing it a long time. But it doesn't mean that I don't pull this thing out and put it on top of my clipboard as I'm walking that house and check boxes and write down things on here, because by doing that, I'm showing my seller that I'm doing my homework. I'm not just walking through and breezing through the house and throwing a number out at them. I'm walking through and I'm looking at the house and I'm studying what needs to be done. Now, this is obviously if the house needs repairs. If the house doesn't need repairs and it's more of a financial situation that they're in, then I probably won't use this. But it's building credibility for yourself by using little things like this, because most people are going to come out and look at that house. They're going to run through it in about 2 or 3 minutes and be throwing a number at them. I see it happen all the time. And sellers don't like that. They're not going to have a warm and fuzzy about you at all. So just do these things that are going to help you as an investor and going out and talking to your sellers. These are the things that make the difference. And so make sure you have some sort of a repair sheet, and this is kind of small and I can't see it that well, but I've got roof, I've got windows, I've got garage doors, I've got HVAC, plumbing, electrical. I've got all kinds of things on here. And I've got a yes or no. Yes, it needs it. No, it doesn't. And I've got pricing on the other side, so I can do pricing very quickly if I needed to do that with this. But there's also some other methods for repairs. But I think I'm going to hold off on that information right now. Because we're going to be doing our estimating repairs workshop, in the next month or so, and so we'll cover that in depth on that. But these are things that are going to, like I say, we're trying to get a deal. We're trying to find a property, trying to get something under contract. So Very, very important things to do. So we've gone through and we've talked to the seller on the phone. We're prepared to come out, and now we have to go out and meet with a seller face to face. Now, this is where you need to shine. You need to build off of the phone conversation. I mean, when I go out and actually meet that seller for the first time, this is where I'm going to be excited about being there. I'm going to be, I'm prepared. I mean, I'm ready for anything. Whatever they got to throw at me, I'm ready for at this point. But now we're going to be face to face with that seller. So when we're face to face, guess what? They get to see your facial expressions and you get to see their facial expressions. So we're going to know. I mean, this is where we've got to be very open and honest about how we do business, which we're going to talk about, even more as we go through this. But when you're looking eye to eye, if you're trying to buffalo a seller, you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes, they're going to see it in a heartbeat. They'll see it in your eyes. They'll see it on your face. So being prepared in the first place, it eliminates all these things. This gives us much more confidence in us being out there in front of them. Now we can start talking about why we're there, what their problem is, what we can do to help solve their problems. So getting face to face, this is actually, this is where I get my deals. I'm building off of that phone conversation. I mean, I'm very good at closing deals, and this is my first step to closing the deal, is getting face to face with my sellers. And so for me, that's exciting for me. I enjoy that. I enjoy that part of it a lot. So if you're not good face to face with people, this is where it's really important to go practice in your bathroom, in front of your mirror, until you make yourself comfortable with what you're saying and what you're doing. And trust me, I had to do that a whole lot in the early years. So don't be bashful about it. It's a great way to teach yourself. So we go out there, we're meeting face to face with a seller. So now it's time, we're going to have to walk the property. We're built off our rapport, and now we want to continue that moving forward. So after I meet with a seller, I'm going to, I ask them. Generally, I ask, hey, let me walk around the outside of the property real quick. Give me about 5 minutes, and then I'll come in. We'll walk the rest of the property, and then we'll sit down and have a conversation. And because walking around, I mean, you're going to walk around the outside. So okay, we're going to look at the HVAC. We're going to look at the roof. We're going to look for any cracks in the foundation. It doesn't take very long to do. You can walk around the house in 5-6 minutes. Generally, very, very easy. And if you see issues, you just make notes of it at that point, because we're going to have to account for that from a dollar standpoint, but we don't have to right that second. And I don't want to spend that much time outside. I want to get back inside with that seller. I want to get back in there with them. So generally, I try to get my sellers to walk with room to room with me as I'm looking at the property. Now, this isn't going to happen every time. Sometimes I have sellers, they say, just, you can go in every room. I'll be sitting here when you're done. Just go do what you got to do, and that's fine. Either way, I like to try and get them to walk with me, just because I can continue to have conversation with them, and just, building my credibility just a little bit more as we're doing that. But like I said, that's going to be not every time. And you just kind of got to flow with that. Don't worry about it if you don't, because one thing I'm going to be doing as I'm walking from room to room, I'm going to be looking at things that I can build off of from a relationship standpoint. I'm going to be looking at pictures on the wall. I'm going to be looking at things that they might have around the house, things that we might have in common that I can make comments on. If they've got pictures of grandkids or pictures of kids at the baseball, playing baseball or whatever it may be. These things are, you start to, oh man, hey, I got kids about that age, or I got grandkids about that age, or, and they're in sports too. I mean, people love that. This is what is building that friendship between you and that seller. And they like you because you're recognizing their stuff. You're recognizing their family. If I'm in a house and somebody's got some deer mounted on the wall. I'm a hunter and I'm a fisherman. I'm start making comments about that. Man, that's a beautiful buck. Where did you get that guy? It just helps take that conversation to a more friendly place, and people like that. This is what's called building rapport. This is how we do it. These are just some of the things that I do as I'm walking through that house. And oftentimes we don't think about this stuff, but and like I say, for all the big wholesale companies, these guys are going through houses left and right, and they're not doing any of these things. And we want to be the person that's different than everybody else. And these are the little things that I think make a difference, and have always made it different for me as well. And I think that that's really, really important. So looking at the property and knowing the repairs that should be done. So there's a handful of repairs that we're going to have to do on every property. And knowing this ahead of time, this is part of our doing our homework before we get there, knowing these things. And if you've got your repair sheet, you can already have these things checked off. So some of the things that we're always going to have to do every time we pick up a property, I know we're going to have to paint the inside of it. That's a given. It just is what it is. And so you check that off as yes. And by knowing the square footage of the house, which you can pull off of HCAT or GCAT or Montgomery County or whoever, you just do your numbers based on the square footage for your paint. How much is my contractor going to charge me per square foot? That's how they generally charge. So you already have that on your sheet. You're not worrying about that when you get out to the property. Most of the time, I will say in 95% of the time, we're going to be changing out flooring in a house. So depending on if you know what your exit strategy is going to be, you can put down your numbers for your flooring. And it's going to be the same calculation. You got your square footage to add 10% for waste on flooring. And you can have that number already down or know what that number is before you even get to the house. And so these are easy things to do, but this is something you're going to do in just about every house that we go into. And if you're at a house and you don't need to do this, well, then just don't add that number in when you're adding your numbers up. So it's not a big deal. Replacing countertops is something we do all the time. In the kitchen, in the bathrooms, it's really common to replace countertops. So these are things that we can already have numbers down for, and just makes us look that much smarter when we're walking through the house. When we are looking at a house, how are we deciding what flooring we should install? Well, I'm real easy for that, because all carpet comes out of houses. If we're buying it, if it's a rental, if we're flipping it, there might be a rare occasion where we keep carpet in, and maybe in some bedrooms. Maybe we put carpet on stairs, things like that. But for the most part, all carpet's going to go. And if it is a rental, we're keeping it as rental, all carpet does go. So I know that we're going to put vinyl plank down in that house before I ever get there. I already know what my price for vinyl plank is. So that decision is made very easily. Now, I will say that the quality of vinyl plank has gone up tremendously over the past several years. And I think we use Duraflux vinyl plank in our houses, and it looks really, really nice. Most people think it's laminate flooring. And so, I can use, we put that in houses we flip as well, and never have a problem with it at all. Now, depending on your price point, but if you're flipping a house at $250,000 to $300,000, I'll put vinyl plank in it all day long, and I have, and never had an issue with it. It looks good. It's very durable, and it's still a floating floor, just like a laminate floor. So these are things that we already know we can get done. How do we know if we should install granite versus laminate? This is a question I hear all the time. And really, if the countertops are laminate and they're in good shape, depending on what my exit strategy is going to be, is going to determine whether I change that countertop out or not. And that's mostly going to be in the kitchen. If it's in the bathrooms, depending on price point, are you just putting the vanities in that you already buy the prefab countertop on top of it? Or are you going to match granite with what you're doing in the kitchen if you're doing that? But really from a cost standpoint, nowadays, if you're buying prefab granite, it's going to be the same price as your laminate. Your price point is going to be probably pretty close to a wash. And just because of everybody's expectations, I'm going to put granite in 9 out of 10 times over laminate countertops. But I will say that we have a rental property that just the other day, my guys, that we had a kitchen countertop that needed to be replaced. And the guys just went to Home Depot, bought another laminate countertop and put it in. That in that situation, it was the easiest, quickest thing to do. And it was, but it would have cost me the same had I done granite, but it would have taken me longer, and you had to get a different crew down there to do it and everything. So that was the easy decision for us to make on that. But this is a property we already own. We are, already have tenants in it and everything. So it wasn't a big deal. It's not like I was trying to refinance it out or something like that, which we'll talk about the money side of it here in a minute too. So, so knowing that we're going to do these things and deciding these things, don't make it, don't let it burden you or bog you down as you're walking a property and looking at a property. We can get these types of prices. We can have a range of these prices before we ever go to a house, and and then just makes the whole process smoother, and it makes you more comfortable as you're walking the property and estimating your repairs. And like I say, we'll do our estimating repair workshop, next month or the month after, and that will I'll give you all kinds of tips on how to help you with doing that, especially if you don't have any idea. So determining different levels of repairs that we're going to do. So this is something that we're determining that off of a handful of things, really. What is our exit strategy going to be? And then, I'm very big at when I'm running my comps, I go in and look at the pictures of my comps. I run through the pictures really quick because I want to see that if it's a flip property, I want to see what has sold and sold in a good, quick amount of time. And what did that person do to that house? Especially if it was a rehabbed house, what type of rehab did they do on that house to get that quick turnaround and get the price point that they wanted to get? That's going to be the best way that we always determine what our rehab should be. I forgot what kind of blank where I was going with that. Sorry. But we're also, we also want to do this for rental properties as well. And I'm also going to look, now I remember what I was going to say. I also look at my active properties, because even though our numbers are based off of our comps, what is sold, we still need to know what our active properties are, because when we list that property, that's our competition. And if we've got a lot of competition in the neighborhood, well, then we've got to have a better product than everybody else at a better price point than everybody else if we want to move that property quick. And I don't know about any of you guys, but the reality, in my opinion, is even if I've got to drop the price a little bit, it's more important to move the property fast, because your holding time will start eating into your profits. And especially if you're holding out for a high price, and that high price, that holdout takes you 2 or 3 or 4 months longer to sell, that's going to eat into your holding cost tremendously. So I'd rather take that little bitty hit up front and save all that money on the backside on the holding cost. And you'll come out far better in the end. So also, one of the things we're looking at, is this a neighborhood that has a lot of flip properties in it? Is this a neighborhood that has a lot of rental properties in it? Maybe it's a neighborhood that's just a lived-in neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of either. It doesn't have a lot of rehabs, or maybe not have any. Not a lot of rental properties in the neighborhood because everybody's lived there for a long time and loves living there, and they don't sell their houses there. So these are going to help determine the level of repairs that you're going to do in your house as you're walking through and looking at that house and trying to determine all this stuff in your head while you're talking with that seller. And I know that these things are like different complicated things, and I do all this stuff very quickly in my head, or if I'm running my comps, it doesn't take me long to do this, but I'm very prepared going in and looking at that property by doing all these things up front. And that's why that's why I try to help you guys with that stuff so much. That's why we have our deal support. When you call into that, that's why I get on the phone and talk to you about this stuff. So if you plan on flipping the property, then maybe you want to do a full rehab on the property. That's generally going to be the case in most situations. And it's also going to depend on the level of work that needs to be done on the house. Maybe it's a house that doesn't need a lot of work and you don't have to do a major rehab. Maybe it's a neighborhood that there's not a lot of rehab properties in there. So by doing a few upgrades in the right places, you don't have to spend a ton of money to achieve your goal and getting the price point that you want to. If you plan on keeping the property as a rental, would you look at your repairs differently? That's a good question to ask yourself, because I don't look at my repairs differently, whether I'm flipping or keeping it as a rental, but most people do. And I know every wholesaler out there advertises that differently. The house, if you're gonna flip it, you only need $30,000 to rehab it. But if you're going to keep it as a rental, it's only going to cost you $10,000 to rehab it. That's never really made a lot of sense to me. But people, I actually had a conversation yesterday with an investor on that very thing. They were looking at a property, and if we're gonna flip it, we'll probably have to put this much in it, but we're thinking about keeping it as a rental property, so we're only going to put this much into it. Okay, that's great, but I'll talk to you in a minute about why that's not necessarily the right way to look at it. But then at the same time, how are we going to estimate our repairs if we're going to wholesale the property? Because we've got to put a number in there for repairs, even though a lot of wholesalers don't do that nowadays. That's the right way to do it. And that's, if you want to find good buyers to buy it, that's what you need to do. So think about the different methods that you're going to do, and knowing what your exit strategy is going to be is going to also help you in how you're talking and negotiating this deal with your seller. So based on your repairs, how are you going to finance the deal? If it's one that you're going to be keeping yourself, knowing how you're going to have your financing in place is also going to help you as you're talking and negotiating with your seller. Because having your different types of financing in place is going to make a difference. So, if you're wholesaling the property, one of the things that made me very good as a wholesaler was I got to know my group of buyers very well. I knew how they financed all their deals. So as I was looking, when I was out looking for a deal for them and out looking at properties, based on the different buyers I had, I could negotiate with my sellers differently, because I had a buyer that would buy the property if I could get the numbers at this certain price point. And so that was super, super important. So getting to know your buyers, and it's like I say, if you're going to be a wholesaler, your success as being a wholesaler is having and knowing your buyers and having the right buyers for the properties you're looking at. That is a huge, huge key in that strategy, and in the wholesaling strategy, in my opinion. That took me a long, long way as a wholesaler. If you're going to fix and flip the property, how are you going to finance the property? It's an important thing to know, because if you're going to fix and flip it, it's going to be short-term financing. It's going to be 70% LTV minus repairs. That's what a lender is going to lend to you. Me as a private lender, that's what we're going to lend to you. Everybody I know out there that lends is going to lend to you like that. If they're educated in lending, not everybody is. That's a whole other topic. But that's going to be primarily what you're going to be looking at. So we have to negotiate and talk with our sellers in that manner. I've been talking with a lady on a house for a while, and they're stuck on their number. And I've laid out for her. I've got the pencil and paper out. If I buy it at this price, this is how much money I'm going to lose. It'll never happen. And I said, you might get lucky and find somebody, but the reality is your number is way too high, and the number I'm giving you is the correct number. So I just stay in, follow up on that. And who knows, down the road, they might be calling saying, a year or two later, when that house is still sitting there, come, let's make a deal. But I know my numbers. I know how my financing is going to work, and I know where it has to be. So it allows me to have a better negotiation. If you're keeping the property as rental property, what's your lender going to require? Now, this is where I'm going to come back to the rental properties and our topic of $30,000 to rehab it and flip it, $10,000 to keep it as rental property. Now, I won't dispute those numbers at all. I never will. I'm not saying that you can't put $10,000 into it and turn it into a rental property and it'd be fine. We've done it. But what it does do is it changes the ARV on the property. If you're only putting $10,000 into that property and your ARV is your ARV is $150,000, and you're going to get that $150,000 if you put $30,000 into it to flip it, and you're only going to put $10,000 into it as a rental property, your ARV is not going to be $150,000. That ARV is going to drop to 130, 125, somewhere in that range. And when you go to refinance that property, guess what? First thing your lender is going to do is send out an appraiser to do an as-is appraisal. So I'll never dispute 10,000 over 30,000. Those numbers could be dead on, but it will affect the value of your property tremendously. So that's what you need to think of. Now, like I said, I've done that. We've put $10,000 into a property, just keeping it as a rental property. But I also was buying that property at 50 cents on the dollar, 40 cents on the dollar. So if my ARV dropped, I was still at 70% minus repairs on my loan. So I was still sitting in very good shape. So think of it that way. That's very important. It's going to help you when you're out looking at these properties. It's going to make a big, big difference. So let me get another drink here real quick, guys. So some of the things that I do after I've done all this stuff, and like I say, I'm kind of drawing it out and explaining it. It really is a simple process once you start doing it. But once we get past, we walk the property, we know what our repairs are, it's time to start sitting down and talking with the seller now. It's just time to sit down, have our sit down time with the seller. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to explain who we are as a company. So we sit down at the kitchen table, we sit down in the living room, wherever they're comfortable. And I explain to them how we work as a company, who we are, how long we've been around, and the different things that we do with properties. I talk to them about, we have properties that we fix them and flip them. I talk to them about rental properties that we have. I talk to them about selling properties under finance and, finding and putting good families in homes. And by doing this, in my opinion, I'm showing them first off that we've been around a long time. I'm showing that we're a very well-rounded company. And not only are we looking out for them and trying to solve their problems, we're also helping other families out as well. We help other people out as well. And I just personally think that you're really showing who you are as an individual and as a company. And people are only going to work with people they know, like, and trust. And this is what I'm trying to build in this situation. I have people ask me all the time, well, when you go to a house, how long are you there? How long do you sit with a seller? I said, it depends. I've sat with sellers for 15 minutes. I've sat with sellers for 2.5, 3 hours. Depends on the situation. But I'm not afraid. I don't have a problem sitting there with someone and explaining things to them, especially if they're very engaged in the conversation and we're building that rapport and we're probably going to do business together. I'm going to spend a lot more time with them. I don't set a time when I go on an appointment on how long I'm going to spend with a seller. I'm going out there to try and find out what their problems are, help them solve their problems, put a property in a contract, and then fulfill on everything that I've told them. So in my opinion, if you're thinking I'm only going to spend 20, 30 minutes out there with a seller because you're listening to some guru over here, mouthing off some stuff, I think that's crazy. And if you want to do that, that's great, because I can come in behind you and I'm going to be the one that gets the deal. That's how I've always looked at it. That's how I've always felt about it. So that's my mindset on it. But I sit down and we talk about all about who we are. Then I walk my sellers through the process of a deal. I walk them through the process of, okay, if we agree on a number here, this is how the process is going to work. I'm going to write a contract. I explain the TREC 1 and 4 residential contract that we use. I explain that once we do that, that I'll execute the contract. I'll send it to our title company, and I get their email address so they can be involved from the very beginning once it goes to title. And then I walk them through the whole process of, in the next 30 days or less, we're going to get this deal done for you. The title company is we're going to get the title commitment. We're going to get the tax certificate back. So, if you got problems on title, usually you've already had that conversation, sometimes not. But I explained to them, when we get that title commitment back, we're gonna see if there's any issues, and then we're gonna work through those problems. I'm here to help you. We're not gonna say, oh, you got problems and we're gonna dump you. No, we're gonna work through the problems and help solve those problems. And I will say that we've got a close ratio of about 97% over the years. And so we're very good at solving those problems. Sometimes there's been a few that there's just no way we could get it solved for one reason or another. But most of the time we can get the problem solved. And I want them to know that. I want them to feel confident that they're picking the right person. And, and we walk them all the way through the closing process from start to finish. And, we get a lot of deals because we take these extra steps with our sellers. And like I say, for me, it's always made the difference. And when you have your sellers hugging you at a closing because you helped them, it's a life changer. It'll make you think about this stuff entirely different. It'll make you know that you're out there doing the right thing as well. And that's always important. So now it's time to start negotiating with the seller. So you can see all the things I've done prior to this point. Now, as I start my negotiating with the seller, sorry, I can't talk here for a second. I start talking about their situation. I'm not talking about money. Money's the last thing we're going to talk about. Let's talk about their situation. Does the house need a lot of work? We're all going to know that at this point. So now how do we solve getting this house, the cost is, what's going to cost me to fix the house back up, what I'm going to do with it when we get the house fixed. And then, or maybe we're talking to someone where the house is actually in pretty good shape, but they've got financial problems. And this happens actually more than you think. This is actually something that we've run across numerous times and solved tons and tons of problems, financial problems with their sellers. So as they're opening up to us and letting us know what their problems are, well, now it's up to me to be trying to come up with some solutions to their problem, some suggestions of directions we might be able to go. And by doing that, I'm opening up the doors for different things that we can do to solve their problem. People really like that. But then, then like I said, we'll walking through the solutions for the situation. It makes all the difference in the world. And and then maybe we have that seller that none of these are the problem. Maybe they don't have any problems to speak of. Maybe they're very financially set. And I've had this happen. And they just want you to make this situation easy for them. They have no desire to have people coming in and out of their house, walking through their home. And if they work with me, once I leave here, once we do the deal, no one's coming back in this house. Well, obviously, if you're going to wholesale the deal, then that might not work. But I don't wholesale. I'm a buyer. So I don't need to go back in that house until we close, once I've walked that property. And I always assure my sellers of that. And sometimes they ask me, actually, when we're getting ready to close next week, when I met with the seller, that was the first thing he asked me, because he had dealt with a wholesaler prior to that but it was about a year earlier than me talking to him. And he kept getting that runaround, and they would get the excuse, oh, I got to bring my contractors by, I got to bring this person by. So that was the first thing that he's like, you don't want to be bringing people by here, do you? Nope. I've walked the property. We're good. Till we close, I don't need to have access to the property. So, there's a lot of reasons people may want to sell and work with you as an investor, and making the whole process very easy for them. Talking to them about how we're going to be doing the work. There's very little work you're going to have to do. You're going to have to read when you get your title commitment. If we have questions, the title company is going to need some information from you. But we're here to help you. We're here to walk you through any of that, and we do. We walk our sellers through all that stuff, and it makes it a very easy situation for both sides. And that way, it also keeps us totally in control of the situation, and we know that the process is going smooth. We know if we've got a bump in the road because of something. And I like being in control of all of our deals, and this is how we assure that we stay in control like that. So also, now I'm going to talk to my sellers about their time frame. Is this something that we've got to get done quick because of a financial situation that we've got to get it done quick? Do we need to get it done quick because the house is about to fall down on you? Or do we have to maybe push this out a little bit to give you time to work through some problems, or to let us help you transition to your new place in life? Because I don't have a problem helping you transition to your new place as well. So you see all these different things I've gone through. I haven't talked about money yet once. Haven't even brought the dollars up yet. But now we're getting to the point where it's about time to make that offer. But we've really educated our sellers on who we are, what we do, what the cost of things are, what repairs may be. I've gone through all these different scenarios with them. And it's not all the scenarios. It's going to depend on their situation. It'll be one of these scenarios I've talked about probably. And now we can talk about, okay, this is where I really need to be to put this property in a contract. And since I've explained everything, we've walked through everything, they know that I'm giving them a good number. And I'm not trying to lowball anybody. I'm trying to give them a very truthful, honest number. I'll talk about my holding cost if I need to. I don't have a problem doing that. I'll explain how my holding cost works, how I have all this cost behind the scenes. And when you get your sellers to understand the whole process, puts you in a very, very good situation. And then at this point is where I'm going to talk about, okay, this property, we really need to be at $75,000 on this house. And you can see all my costs and how I've worked through all this with you, and you understand how where I'm coming from. My numbers are good. And if this number works, we can make this happen. We can get you moving in a forward direction immediately. We can start taking care of this problem, or whatever the case may be. But I've gone through all of these other exercises before I ever get to the number. Last thing I want to do. And at the same time, I'm always, which I've said it a million times already, I'm continually letting my sellers know that I am there to help them. Now, the key is you've got to fulfill on everything that you tell them. But if you do, this is also when you get some of the greatest referrals you'll ever get as well. And once you get a referral from someone you've helped like this, it's a done deal. It's a deal in your lap unless you blow it. So these are like I said, this has worked for me very, very well. And this is how I will always do my business as far as when I'm going out and looking at a single family home and talking to a seller. And when you're looking at a bigger deal, if you're dealing with mom and pop owners, you're going to do the exact same thing. If it's a small apartment complex, if it's a mobile home park, if it's a self-storage building, if it's a mom and pop owner, it's not a corporate business, you're going to treat them, you do the same thing every single time. And it's going to take you to a whole different level over everybody else, all your competition. That's my belief anyhow. So always give your seller an offer on a contract. Always give it in a contract. You can give it verbally, but put it on a contract. Now, as any of you that know me know that I am not a fan of a 1 or 2 page contract. I think they are garbage because they are garbage. We use the Trek 1 in 4 residential contract. And whether you want to wholesale, keep it to flip it, keep it as rental property, that contract works. And if you're wholesaling it, you can use the Trek contract. Trek recognizes wholesaling. And the Trek 1 in 4 residential contract is an assignable contract. You do not have to put and or assigned on it. It is an assignable contract. And I've done it numerous times over the years. Don't do it much, but anymore. But in the beginning, I did it a lot. When you make your offer, always make sure that you've got room to negotiate. Never give your highest offer right out of the gate, because if they come back with a counter, you got no place to go. Never start off with your highest number. Give yourself room to move up. And even if you don't need to move up, moving up a little bit, showing good faith, can lock a deal up just like that. And always, always, always follow up with your sellers. Not every deal is going to happen overnight. As a matter of fact, most deals don't happen overnight, don't happen on the first appointment. It's up to us to follow up. And if we don't follow up, they're not going to follow up with us. It's going to be up to us to follow up with them. And the better you are at following up, the more deals you will get. I can promise you that. Follow up is everything. So very important. So, these are the steps that like I said, I've done this for years, and I've followed all of these steps for years. I do it the same on every single property I look at. Now, things are going to change depending on the situation, but I go through all these different steps based on whatever the situation is. I believe if you follow these steps that you'll convert more deals. I mean, I truly believe that, because I can't tell you how many times I've gotten deals over the fast talking wholesaler coming in there lowball them, that as soon as they walked out the door, the seller's going, man, I don't trust that guy as far as I can throw him. I hear that all the time and have heard it for years. The goal is to help our sellers and solve their problems, period. The more people we can help, the farther it's going to get us every single time. So keep these things in mind when you're going out and talking with your sellers, and practice, practice, practice. That's what I've done. I mean, if I don't know how to do something where I'm going to need to get in front of somebody or in front of people, I practice. I got to make myself confident before I can be confident in front of other people. And the only way it works for me is to go in the bathroom, close the door, and talk to myself in the mirror, read my presentation in the mirror, whatever the case may be. And it makes all the difference in the world. So, guys, that's our workshop for today. Let me unshare my screen here. Stop share. Boom. Okay. I don't know why I'm so small here in the top. Angie, do you know why I'm so small here in the top?
Try your view.
Do what?
Try your view.
Which I'm on speaker view. What view should it be on?
Presenter.
Full. I don't have that. How about full screen? Nope, that put you on full screen. Anyhow, so there we go. There we go. We got any questions?
No.
No questions, really. Guys, I'm surprised you don't have anything to ask about all this. I was hoping to get some good questions that would stump me. I like that. So, well, if we don't have any questions, I hope you guys learned a lot today about negotiating, walking through your properties with your sellers, things to think about prior to getting out there, and some of the homework that you need to do before you go out and look at the property. These things, like I say, they seem like they're long things to do because I'm explaining them, but the reality is when I do this stuff, to pull all this stuff together for one property takes me 10 or 15 minutes. It really doesn't take me very long. And I think these are the things that will make a great difference for you, and hope you put them in play. And let me know. If you're not going to ask me any questions, let me know how things go for you. So enjoyed the education today for you guys, and tune in to our next meeting next month, and get out to our live meeting on the 30th at Quest, and got a great presentation. What is it? The benefits of private money. So I'm going to go through the benefits of being a private lender, the benefits of borrowing private money, cover the whole gamut. So if you want to be a lender, if you want to try and find private money, this is going to be the perfect education for you, on top of all the great networking we're going to have, and food and drink and all that good stuff. So guys, thanks for joining in today. I appreciate it, and we will see you next time.